It's Friday, and it is Foodie Friday. So, last week, we popped quinoa. And I'm telling you, these, oh my gosh, absolutely delicious. I'm a quinoa fan, but it's a popped quinoa. And the fun thing about these is that you can use them in a whole lot of different things. They keep their texture. They add a nice crunch, and we're going to use them. Today, I am going to make a healthy-ish Butterfinger. Okay, I'm also going to share my little experiments in the kitchen from last week. Okay, so, well, y'all know I've got my spring and mulberry date-sweetened chocolate melting back here that we're going to cover this up with. But this should be pretty easy, I hope, to show you the whole thing. I just don't think we're going to get it chilled. So this does have to be cooked for a tiny bit. This is 1 cup of peanut butter. Now, I like a crunch. I'm a texture person. So I like a crunchy peanut butter. My absolute favorite peanut butter, especially to use for baking, because you know, all those natural peanut butters have different textures. So, you know, some are super, super thick and some are not. But if you have a Myers near you, oh no, I don't even know if this is Myers. Crazy Richard's natural peanut butter. There's just peanuts in here, just peanuts, no added funky oil, nothing at all, women owned and made in the USA. So that's a trifecta. It is smooth. I mean, look, it's pretty runny. Can you see how runny it is? And that makes it nice and pourable. It's not cement that you have to like reconstitute. So I really like it. It's a good dipping sauce too. It's kind of middle of the road. You don't have to do a whole lot with it. So we're gonna start with 1 cup of natural peanut butter, a 1/3 cup of allulose. Now, I think you all know by now that I will rehash a recipe a few times. So this in particular, you could use coconut sugar. I'm using allulose for a lower blood sugar spike, right, of course. But I'm using a tiny bit of molasses because you know how Butterfinger has that like deep and rich kind of flavor. So we're adding a teaspoon of molasses. And this is, let's see, so we are mixing peanut butter, allulose, molasses, and salt. Teaspoon. All right. And again, I've been adding molasses. Because in a lot of things that I've been using the allulose for, just to get a deeper, richer flavor. And so that kind of, a tiny bit of molasses goes a long way. It gives you the richness of brown sugar without all the calories. And same with coconut sugar. All of those sugars have pretty much the same blood sugar insulin spike. They have the same glycemic index for the most part. Same with honey, same with maple syrup, you know, natural maple syrup. I caution everyone about agave syrup because very often agave syrups are marketed as healthy and natural. They have, their glycemic spike is just about as high as sugar, and very often it's mixed with high fructose corn syrup to kind of stretch it. It's not all natural all the time. So, you know, it always comes down to that marketing. Ugh, Driving me crazy. Okay. Oh, our chocolate is doing good over there. And the thing with the allulose, it is going to thicken this peanut butter. And tiny bit of salt. Where's my salt? Whoops. Let me grab my salt, guys. Another thing about the molasses is molasses gives you tiny bits. Of course, we're only using a teaspoon, so we're not getting a lot, but tiny amounts of trace minerals, and tiny bit of iron, especially, you're using the blackstrap molasses. So this is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt, especially if, you're using your unsalted peanut butter. Okay, now, this is already getting thick. Make sure the allulose is all melted. Woo. It will thicken, again, because of the allulose. And the point is to get it to set. Now, we're also adding 4 tablespoons of organic PB2. And this is going to add, instead of protein powder, right here, instead of adding protein powder to give it a protein boost, we are using the PB2 as our protein powder, because 2 tablespoons, let me just double check if I'm right here, if I recall, 2 tablespoons gives us 7 grams of plant, 2 tablespoons, 7 grams of plant protein. So we just added 14 grams of protein to this and thickened the mix up a little bit. I probably should have added that before, but now we're only supposed to be mixing this for 2 to 3 minutes. So it's starting to firm up on me, but that's okay because we want it to get firm, and we're gonna pop it in here. And we could be fancy and we could put it in. Look at how that thickened up. This is going to work out just fine. We could be fancy and, press this into a silicone, muffin, or not muffin pan, but a silicone pan that you can pop this out of. But that would take a lot of coordination on my part while I'm trying to do a quick 15-minute food session here. So just want to press this down into the pan and then top it with our melted chocolate and our, we're going to put a teaspoon of coconut oil in this. Good morning, Jackie. We're going to put a teaspoon of coconut oil in this. And this is hot, guys. So we are not going to be able to put this chocolate on until it chills a little bit. I'm going to pop this in the fridge. I will post a picture of this totally finished. And guess what? I forgot to put in it. I forgot to put the quinoa in. So I'm going to press that in while it's hot, because this is what's going to help. This is what's going to help give it a quinoa crunch. Or not a quinoa crunch, but you know how Butterfinger has that snap to it? Well, the allulose and the, you know what? Yep, I should have added this in last, but it should have still been a little bit warm, not a little bit warm. And make sure, you don't throw papers on your cooktop unless you have an induction cooktop that doesn't get hot. Okay, that's it. 1.5 cups of the puffed quinoa. And I'm gonna do my best to try to get this back in here and mix it all together, because this is going to make a huge difference. It's going to bulk it up, and it's going to it's gonna bulk it up, and it's gonna give us that crunch. So let's see if we can get this a little softer. I was warned that you only have about 2 to 3 minutes before this firms up. Although it should be pretty pliable, like, you know, like peanut butter. But the quinoa, the popped quinoa, is going to give it the crunch that we're looking for, okay? Let me turn this off. We're gonna just do this the old-fashioned way. We're gonna do it by hand. And these little, let me tell you, these little quinoa puffs really kind of make a mess. When you pop them, really, it's kind of like you end up with these little beads all over your floor, and it's unfortunate. But I made, I'll share this. I'm gonna write up these recipes. I made a Kind bar, you know, those Kind bars last week. Oh my gosh, delicious, absolutely delicious. And these were part of the recipe, the popped quinoa. And I will tell you that it was really, really good. And even, I mean, we were traveling last weekend, and I have them in the fridge. They lasted, and the quinoa still pops, okay? Still has some crunch to it. So I was kind of thinking that the quinoa would, there we go, not ideal, but it works. I was kind of thinking that the quinoa would have gotten soggy, especially after being in the fridge, but it did not. And I will show you those bars here in a second. And you know, we talked about me being a mad scientist last week, and it's real. It's real. So I made these bars on Friday after the live, and they made 2 kinds. So one, and I know I talked about these before. I talked about them, I mentioned these recipes last week. So we have these Kind bars, okay? And if you can see the quinoa in there, seeds, pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, not sesame seeds, pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, sunflower seeds. And then they're held together with a protein base. I used vanilla protein powder, and they baked. Now they're a little crumbly. I think they were a little too dry, or I didn't press them into the pan enough. So not a failure, just a little difficult to eat. And then, if you've ever heard of an RX bar, it is kind of like a Quest bar, kind of chewy. This was also delicious. Definitely have to keep them in the fridge. They were a little too, they got a little warm, but actually they're holding their shape, and these were not in the refrigerator, so they're holding their shape pretty well. A date base, you blend everything together, so you don't really see the nuts and the seeds in here, but full of nuts and seeds. A date base with protein powder as well. So I have to put the final recipe together to get the macros, because of course I made some changes. But I am a happy girl. We traveled with these, delicious. These, I don't know, it's a texture thing. I like them, they're delicious. I would probably, these would be really, really good to roll in something, like roll in some coconut. I'm not sure, but oh, they are delicious. So stay tuned this weekend. I will get these recipes together, and you will have 3 recipes. The butternut Butterfinger bars, all we have to do is chill these out, throw the chocolate on top of them, and they're done. Haven't tasted them yet, obviously, but how can you go wrong? So, I will post everything. If you don't see it soon, send me a message, leave a comment, nudge me along, because, I get distracted by all the things. All right, I hope you all have an amazing, wonderful weekend. November, we are talking all about, November's theme is all about calm, good sleep, and getting into the holidays being a calm, rested. We're not going to stress out our adrenals. We're going to learn some deep breathing, learn how to use adaptogens and magnesium to calm our parasympathetic nervous system, and we're going to find calm during the chaos. Have a good one.